What was your first ever job? Taekwondo assistant instructor. What's a hobby you're really bad at but you love doing? Singing and dancing. Who's the most famous person you ever saw? Alex Pettyfer. Hi everyone, don't worry, this was not a Q&A, these were icebreaker questions because today we're going to talk about retrospectives. And before we get into it, I'm just going to introduce myself if you don't know me already. So my name is Katarina, I'm a product manager working in a scale-up and I currently live in Berlin. And I'm a bit nerdy about workshops, retrospectives, all that kind of stuff. And today I thought, because I'm currently preparing our team's retrospective, I thought I would share my process with you about how to make this process and these retrospectives more fun and actually useful. Because the problem with a lot of retrospectives is that people zone out, they get really bored, you don't really have any learnings at the end, you don't take action on them, and it's just generally a bit of a waste of time. And what I try to do every time I organize a retrospective is to make them more fun and more useful than the last one. Because I feel like if they are done right, they can really help you to generate a couple of extra action steps that really bring your team forward and make you work better together. And also they are fun, they bond the team, and I think it's just also a great way to gauge the energy of the team. And yeah, so I've done retrospectives for the past couple of years. I've organized and facilitated a lot of them and I made quite a few learnings from them, and so I thought I would share my top learnings with you. Okay, so the first piece of advice I would give to you is to make sure that you know why you're running retrospectives and that the team that you're working with also knows why you're running them, because I feel like sometimes people get this calendar invite, it says retrospective, and maybe new team members or just people who are not so familiar with the whole agile process or don't really know what it's all about. And so I like to emphasize that every beginning, like every new retrospective meeting, why we're doing this and how it's helping us, because otherwise people are just going to zone out, they're just going to not understand, and they don't really put all of their effort into it. And so I've noticed that is really helpful. That's been helping with our team as well, is just emphasizing, hey, we're doing this so we can really learn about what really went well, what didn't go well in the past 2 weeks of working together. I also, last time, for example, I'm working now with a new team, so we said, hey, this is just a great way to establish now what our values are, how we like to work together, what's important to us, what sort of habits and routines as a team we would like to establish. So retrospectives can come in all sort of formats, and yeah, it's just important to show the team that you really care about this format and you really care about also improving it, and they know why they're in this meeting. The next step is to incorporate some sort of team building exercises. So as I already showed you before, like a great way to do that is through icebreaker activities. It doesn't have to always be this cheesy, like it can be anything. It can be something that is a bit more kind of serious or a bit more applicable to the meeting that you're running. Ultimately, you know best. So there are so many retrospective icebreaker questions out there. Just Google them and then you can find the right one for your team, or you can just make it up as well. I've been using this tool called Parable, and you can also use Miro, but Parable is really great because it already has a lot of icebreaker questions. So here, for example, you can rotate between the questions, so you can just kind of click the refresh button and it will just come up with different icebreaker questions, so you don't really have to Google anything or look up anything. And I just kind of go through until I find one that really suits the team and that I think will be fun and just generate a good discussion or some laughs. Another way to make retrospectives more fun is to change the format. So I know that maybe you've been sticking to the tried and tested stop, start, continue format, or the lean coffee format, or any other sort of retrospective format, and it might be working great for you, but these can get so repetitive and people will already know what to expect, and to be honest, it can also then keep generating the same sort of insights. So to switch it up and generate new insights, you can switch up the format. So I would also suggest using tools, because that will save you a lot of time and energy. Of course, you can always do this yourself. So for example, Miro has really great templates. You can just click on this template thing and then you can search retrospective, and then it will come up with different retrospective formats. You can just scroll through all of these, check them out, try a couple. Or you can use Parable, the tool that I also just mentioned before. That's also really great with different formats. They have a lot of them saved in there. Like, for example, one I used last time was a Dream Team retrospective. This is more about new teams and, as I mentioned, kind of coming up with the values that your team cares about, or like the different habits that they like to follow. Just make sure that it's a format that you're prepared with, that you know what the format is about, and you kind of rehearse it, even if it's just with yourself, but you practice it before you actually do it with the team, because sometimes it can go wrong. I've done that before, where I just kind of came up with a format, thought, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, but then actually didn't run it through as if I was actually completing it, and then it kind of went wrong and we were wasting a bit of time. So make sure that you practice it. Maybe also you have a colleague that you can practice it with quickly, or just with yourself. Pretend that you're going through this retrospective, try and fill out some of the questions, and then actually do it with your team. Another really important thing is to bring lots of energy into the retrospective. So just to make it fun, you have to be energetic, you have to enjoy it, you have to really have fun and bring lots of fun energy to your team, especially if it's a remote format, because sometimes it's really hard to bring the body language across. And so just kind of go over the top a little bit, just be more fun, smile, because this will rub off on your team and you might feel a bit weird and a bit cheesy and a bit silly. I've been there, I've done that, but it is super important and it will make a difference. Because if you're kind of just going like, hey, so today we're doing a retrospective and this is like blah, 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 people are going to feel it and people are not going to want to be there. So you need to be fun and you just need to bring that energy. So either you bring that energy yourself or you get someone to facilitate your retrospective, especially if it's a really important one. If it's like, talking about a project that went wrong and you need to discuss really what you can do to improve it in the future. But yeah, just make sure that there's some sort of energy there. It's also really important as a facilitator to give the team time, space to talk. And you need to hold yourself back sometimes and shut up. So I learned this also in the beginning. I always was very tempted to just talk and feel the silence and feel the space, because people, they just need time. Sometimes it takes them a while, they're a little bit shy. And so you need to give them this space to come up with topics or just to say something. And this might just include you just sitting there and waiting. Asking a question and then waiting. And waiting and waiting and waiting until someone says something. If they don't say anything after a while, maybe you can nudge them a little bit, but I would just try and get a little bit uncomfortable with the silence, because at some point someone is going to say something, because they will think of something or they will be awkward with the silence themselves, so they will have to fill it with words. So yeah, I think that's also really important. And sometimes it just takes people a while to think of something to say. They need more than 1 or 2 seconds to come up with something. Another thing that sometimes goes wrong with retrospectives is that you don't come up with action items, like concrete action items in the end, and then you don't follow up with these action items in the next retrospective. This step is super important. I know it's super basic, but it is very important, and it's like common knowledge, but not like little practice. You need to come up with maybe 3 action items. This is sort of the amount of items that I usually come up with. 3 items, you give each item an owner, so who's going to take care of this and who's going to be responsible for making this happen. It doesn't always have to be the facilitator, always someone from the team. And then make sure you document this, follow up with people afterwards, share them, hey, these are the action items, you are going to do this by next retrospective, for example. It's a couple of hours later now, my video stopped recording because my phone somehow ran out of storage. I'm now prepared and ready to roll on with these retrospective tips with my matcha latte and my Keep Calm and Scrum On cup. I know, very hipster. I don't even know what to say. So once you've established the action items, once everyone knows, okay, what you're doing, each action item actually has an owner, then you need to make sure that at every retrospective, at the beginning, you take 5 minutes to check in on these action items, make sure that there's progress happening, because then people really see that things are happening and it's not just, something that you come up with at the end of retro and then forget about it, but no, you actually take action on it and you follow up on it. So yeah, that's the way how you make retrospective useful. I think that's a super basic tip, but to be honest, a lot of people don't do it. So make sure you start doing that from now on if you don't do it already. Another thing you can do to encourage people more and to make it more fun is to make sure you also celebrate your success in retrospective. So don't just focus on the stuff that has to be improved, but also give some space, a couple of minutes, maybe at the beginning of a retro or at the end, to give people a chance to say thank you to other team members, or to praise them on things that they helped them with, or just celebrate something you've accomplished together as a team. And that can always bring up the spirit, and it can make retrospectives also feel more fun and like not just a place where people complain about things that go wrong. Final tip I can add is to try and mix up where you do the retrospectives. So if you're a team that works in person, why not have your retrospective outside in the sun, in the fresh air, go to a cafe, go to a park, take your post-it notes with you, why not, you know? You can really do it anywhere, and it can really switch up your energy. It can give people just some space to breathe, and I think that can also be really fun. Okay, I think that was most of my tips. I have a lot more, but I can do another video maybe on that as well. But for now, I would just say play around with it. I think in the end of the day, it just comes down to the team that you're working with and the type of retrospective that you're running. And you just have to find out what works for you. So I think it's really important that you really look at your team and really think deeply about what they need, and not just create some retrospective. I think that's the best way to make it useful, and not just do a retrospective for the sake of it to fulfill this, you know, Scrum protocol. So yeah, with that, I'm gonna leave you. So that was all of my tips. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Maybe you've also made some experiences with your own retrospectives, like maybe you have some advice to share with people in the comments. That would be amazing. And don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And I will see you in the next one.